I bought that Porsche with money my son never saw me earn. He drove it like it was his birthright before he ever asked whose name was on the title. That's the part he forgot on Father's Day. That's the part I never did. Welcome back to Dad's Pure Revenge. If you're new here, hit subscribe. And if you've ever had a kid look you in the eye and say something you can't unhear, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from tonight. This one's a long one. Stay till the end. Before I get to my son, I need to tell you about a woman named Loretta Combs. Loretta ran the front desk at my auto shop on Route 9 outside Dayton for 11 years. She showed up at 6:40 every morning, even though we didn't open till 8, because she liked to have the coffee going before the mechanics rolled in cold. When my wife Diane got sick, Loretta was the one who started keeping a folding chair behind the counter, just in case I needed to sit down between calls to the hospital. Nobody asked her to do that. She just did it. When Diane died, Loretta closed the shop for exactly 1 day, the day of the funeral, and reopened it herself the next morning so I wouldn't have to think about payroll. She never once mentioned it afterward. That's the kind of person Loretta Combs was. My name's Russell Cobb. I'm 58. I own Cobb Auto and Diesel, and until about a year and a half ago, I would have told you my biggest flaw was that I let my son get away with things because I didn't want him to grow up feeling what I felt growing up, which was that nothing I did was ever enough. I found out the hard way that there's a difference between giving a kid room to breathe and just never making him answer for anything. My son's name is Tyler. He's 26, smart, better with people than I ever was, and for a long time, I told myself the entitlement was just confidence. I paid for his apartment in Beaver Creek for 3 years after college, while he found his footing. I paid off 2 fender benders without blinking. I told myself that's what dads do. Thursday, June 18th, this year, 3 days before Father's Day, Tyler called me at 4:12 in the afternoon. I was under a Silverado with a bad transmission, and I had to have Loretta hold the phone up to my ear because my hands were black to the wrist. "Dad, I need 11 grand by Sunday," he said. "No hello?" I asked him what for. He said a business deal, something about a friend's app, said it wouldn't wait. I asked him to slow down and explain it properly, and he said, and I'm quoting this exactly because I've replayed it more times than I'd like to admit, "Can you just, for once, not make everything a whole conversation?" I told him I wanted to understand what I was putting $11,000 into before I wired it. He got quiet for a second, and then he said, "Figure it out yourself then. I'll ask someone who actually helps." He hung up. I lay there under that Silverado a while longer than the job needed. The person who actually helped, as it turned out, was nobody. There was no app. There was a poker debt, which I only learned about later from a name I never expected to hear it from. Here's where I have to tell you about Marcus. Marcus Webb was 17 when he started sweeping floors at my shop 3 afternoons a week, part of a program the county ran for kids who'd aged out of foster care faster than they were ready for. He's 20 now, full-time, ASE certified, and he still shows up at 6:40 in the morning because Loretta trained him, and the habit stuck. Marcus doesn't have people who show up for him. No dad, no mom in the picture, an aunt in Columbus he sees twice a year. So he adopted the shop instead. Every year on the anniversary of Diane's funeral, without me asking, without me ever telling him the date, Marcus brings a coffee and sets it on the counter where Loretta used to keep that folding chair. He's never said why. He doesn't have to. I noticed things start to shift that spring, but I didn't let myself look at them straight on yet. Tyler stopped asking how the shop was doing. He'd come by, glance at the lot, ask when I was going to actually upgrade the fleet. I told myself he was just young. I told myself a lot of things that spring that I wasn't ready to stop telling myself. Father's Day was Sunday, June 21st. I'd invited Tyler to the house for dinner. Nothing big, just steaks, and the 2 of us, the first Father's Day since Diane passed that felt like it might not hurt the whole way through. He showed up at 6:50, 20 minutes late, and before he even sat down, he asked if I'd thought about the $11,000. I said I hadn't sent it, and I wasn't going to, until he told me the truth about what it was for. That's when something in him just switched off warm. He stood in my kitchen, under the light over the table where his mother used to sit, and he said, "You know what? I wish you'd never been my dad. At least then I wouldn't have grown up thinking this was normal." The room went very quiet. I want to tell you I said something wise. I didn't. I stood up and the only thing that came out of me was, "Then live as if you never had one." I picked my keys up off the counter. My keys. To my 2023 Porsche 911. The one I bought myself 8 months after Diane died, because for the first time in 30 years, there was nobody left to ask permission. And I walked out the front door and drove off. I want you to sit with that phrase for a second, because it matters later. My keys. To my car. Tyler had been driving that Porsche more than I had. I'd handed him a spare key back in the fall, so he could take it to get detailed once, and somewhere along the way, once, turned into whenever he wanted, and somewhere along the way, he'd stopped asking. I was 3 miles down Route 9, hands still shaking a little, when my phone lit up on the passenger seat. A text from Tyler. "Bring my car back or I'm calling the cops." I pulled into the gas station at the corner of Route 9 and Fairground Road, and just looked at that message for a long time. My car. Not your car. Not the car. His. I didn't call him back. I called Diane's old lawyer instead, a man named an attorney, Warren Pruitt, who'd handled our estate paperwork for 20 years. It was almost 8 o'clock on a Sunday, and he picked up anyway, because that's who Warren is. "He called the police, Warren," I said. "On me. For driving my own car." Warren was quiet a second. Then he said, "Russell, do you want to talk about the will while we're at it?" I hadn't planned to, but sitting in that gas station lot under a sky that hadn't fully gone dark yet, I told him yes. Here's what most people don't know about me. The shop, the house, everything Diane and I built. It had all been headed to Tyler, split with a smaller share to a scholarship fund we'd set up years back for kids in Marcus's program. I'd never told Tyler the specifics, but he knew the shape of it. He'd known it his whole adult life. He'd been living like a man who already owned things he hadn't earned yet. I told Warren I wanted to restructure it. Not out of spite. I want to be honest with you about that, because I know how this sounds. I wasn't shaking with anger sitting in that lot. Something in me had just gone still. The way a shop goes quiet after you finally shut off a machine that's been running too hot for too long. I told Warren I wanted the shop itself, Cobb Auto and Diesel, the building, the land, the accounts, to go to Marcus Webb, with Loretta, named as an equal partner in the business, until she chose to retire. Tyler would keep his mother's jewelry, a modest cash inheritance, and nothing else. The scholarship fund would double. Warren asked me twice if I was sure. I told him I'd never been more sure of anything since the day I married Diane. 2 Beaver Creek police officers met me back at my own house 40 minutes later. I want you to picture how that felt. Pulling into my own driveway to find flashing lights waiting for me. Over a car with my name on the title, insurance, and registration, all of which I handed over without a word. One of the officers, a younger guy named Officer Delgado, looked at the paperwork, looked at Tyler standing on the porch, and said, "Sir, this vehicle is registered to you. There's no crime here." Tyler's face did something I'd never seen it do before. It went blank, and then it went red. He didn't call again that night, or the next. By Wednesday, the missed calls from him were up to 11. By Friday, 29. The following Tuesday, 34. He texted a few times too. "We need to talk about." Then, "Are you seriously ignoring me?" Then, finally, on the 10th day, just my name. Dad. I let it sit. Warren had the paperwork finalized by then. I hadn't told Tyler yet. He had no idea what was coming, but he would. I finally called him back on a Thursday evening, July 9th, and asked him to meet me at the shop after close, not the house. I wanted him standing on the floor Diane and I built, so he'd understand exactly what he'd been so careless with. He walked in at 7 o'clock sharp. still in the polo he wore to whatever office he worked at that month. Marcus was there, pretending to close out a drawer that didn't need closing, giving us room but staying close, the way he does. "You could have just given me the money," Tyler said. "No hello, same as always." "You could have just told me the truth," I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I told him about the will, all of it. The shop to Marcus and Loretta. The scholarship fund doubled, his inheritance reduced to what his mother would have wanted him to have without ever having to earn it. Which, I told him, was more generosity than he'd shown me in longer than I wanted to count. He came apart in pieces, right there on the shop floor. First disbelief, then the volume climbing, then something quieter that might have been the start of real feeling. He said I was punishing him for one bad night. I told him I wasn't punishing him for one night. I was done rescuing him from every night that came before it. "You're really giving my future to some kid who used to sweep floors here," he said, and I watched Marcus go very still by the register, not saying a word, just absorbing it, the way he's had to absorb a lot of things nobody should have to. "He still sweeps them," I said. "That's the difference between you two. He never once thought he was too good for it." Tyler left without saying goodbye. I haven't heard from him since. Not that night, not through July, not on his own birthday, which came and went 3 weeks ago without a call either direction. I won't sit here and tell you that doesn't cost something. It does. There are nights I look at Diane's picture on the mantel and wonder what she'd say about a Father's Day that ended with police lights in the driveway. But I've stopped waiting to feel guilty about it, because I know exactly what I did and why. I gave what I built to the people who actually showed up for it. A woman who kept a folding chair behind a counter for me without being asked, and a kid who still brings a cup of coffee every year for a woman he never even met. The Porsche is still in my garage. I drive it on Sundays now, windows down. No particular place I need to prove I can go. I don't need anything from Tyler anymore. Not an apology, not an explanation, not even a phone call. That's not the same as being at peace with how things ended. It's just its own kind of quiet, and most days, that's enough. If this one hit you, if you've ever had to learn the hard way that love and being taken for granted aren't the same thing, hit like, subscribe for the next one, and tell me in the comments, would you have handed the keys back?